Hi everyone, my name is Matt and welcome to my channel. One of my favorite ways to rekindle my hobby spark is to revisit an old project. It's been a long time since I worked on my Orcs and Goblins army, and painting some classic old world models is just what I need to get the hobby mojo back. We also have a set of recipe cards to go along with the video, and you can download them and print them out. Details about how to get them will be down in the description below. The first half of the video will be beginner friendly, and will cover the basics and paint the models to a battle-ready quality. In the second half, we'll spend a little more time and add some highlights. So let's grab our brushes and get started. After assembling the models, I undercoated them with a white primer and then mounted them to corks for easier handling. I began by base coating the skin with Mantis Warrior's Green. Work on one section at a time and use plenty of paint so it flows into all the crevices. Then use the brush to soak up any excess. It can be kind of tricky to get to the arm behind the shield. Just take your time, and if you make any mistakes you can touch them up with white. You could also paint the models in a sub-assembly if you want to. Next I shaded all the skin with Bealtan Green. Just like with the first layer, work on one section at a time and apply plenty of paint so it flows into all the recesses. Then use the brush to soak up any excess. I'm going to make this patch of models with the same green tone to save time. If you'd like to see how to paint a variety of green tones, check out this video here. I want a few different shades of leather on the models. First, I painted a dark leather color with Wyldwood contrast. I painted about half the boots, the trousers, and a few straps. Next I painted some of the remaining leather areas with Gore-Grunta fur. This is a fairly transparent color, and you may want to apply a second layer after the first one dries. I painted all the remaining leather areas next with Snakebite leather. This is a very transparent color, and it can leave a streaky finish. I'm going to smooth out those areas later during the highlight stage. Next I painted the tunics with Black Legion. Contrast paint can get kind of thick over time, and you may need to dilute it with a small amount of water to make the paint flow better. I had to add a couple of drops of water to mine. A little bit will go a long way though, so make sure to add the water sparingly. I painted a few different areas next with Skeleton Horde. I painted over the wood, strings, fur, and any teeth and bones on their belts. I'd like the wooden shields to have a few different tones. I painted a second layer of Skeleton Horde on about a third of the wood planks. Next I painted a layer of Ratling flesh shade on some of the other wood pieces to add a reddish tone. You could build up a couple layers for a deeper color. Then I painted a layer of Nuln Oil on the remaining wood planks. A couple of the shields have fabric or leather stretched over the front. and I painted those with Blood Angel's Red. I find that if I use short, quick brush strokes, it can make a smoother result. Next, I shaded the red with Nuln Oil. I base coated all the steel areas next with Iron Hand steel, and after the first layer dried, I painted a second for a bright, opaque finish. I painted a few remaining metal details with Runelord brass, and after the first layer dried, I added a second. I shaded the brass and steel with a mix I like to call Armor Wash, and you can learn how to mix your own in this video here. This is a mix of equal parts Ratling Grime, Contrast Medium, and Lamian Medium. If you don't feel like mixing anything, you could paint a couple layers of Nuln Oil instead. Next, I painted the teeth, eyes, and nails with diluted black paint. I painted over the teeth and nails with Bonewhite, leaving a narrow black outline. And then I painted the eyes with a dot of Wild Rider Red, again leaving a narrow black outline. At this stage you could base the models and call them finished, but I want to add a couple quick highlights, so let's keep going. I highlighted the skin first with a mix of moot green and a small amount of toxic yellow. The actual ratio will vary based on how dark your base coat dried. My mix was about 3 parts green to 1 part yellow. If you want smoother results, you could apply this highlight as a series of glazes instead. But I want to finish these models quickly, so I'm just going to stick with a quick edge highlight. Now is a great time for me to ask you to do those YouTube things that we all love so much. If you're liking the video so far, please give it a like. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any future content. If you really like what I'm doing here and want to support the channel further, please consider Patreon or a YouTube channel membership. We have some perks including a Discord server, printer-friendly PDF files of our new recipe cards, and early access to videos. Next, I highlighted the edges of the dark brown leather with Gorthor Brown. I highlighted the medium brown leather next with rat skin flesh. Next, I highlighted the yellow leather with a glaze style highlight of Balor Brown. The Snakebite leather base coat dried uneven, and a few glazes will help smooth out the surface imperfections. I highlighted the edges next with a sharp line of Averland Sunset. I highlighted the edges of the black leather with a sharp line of Storm Vermin fur. Next, I highlighted the red shields with a few sharp lines of Wild Rider red. This is a fairly quick jump up in value, and you may want to use a darker red instead. Evil Sun's Scarlet would be a good alternative. I'd like to paint a yellow skull symbol on the red shields, and I started with an outline of Averland Sunset. Dilute the paint with water, and with very little paint on the brush, sketch out the shape. Once you're happy with the outline, fill in the shape with diluted paint. Make sure the paint is diluted like a glaze, and build up a few thin layers for a smooth result. Once I was happy with the skull shape, I added some eye and nose shapes with corn red. Then I used a sharp brush to outline the skull with moon yellow. On the shields that have bare wood, I decided to paint some fangs. I think the skull symbol would be too detailed for the pronounced wood grain, and a simpler design would be a better choice. Just like with the skull shapes, I started with an outline sketch, and then filled in the shapes with Averland Sunset. Next, I highlighted the edges and wood grain with moon yellow. I think the symbols could use some extra definition, so I outlined the edges with thinned black paint and a very sharp brush. Next, I painted some triangle shapes on the shoulders with Bonewhite. These designs are on my Night Goblins, and I think it helps unify the army. After the first layer dried, I painted a second for an opaque finish. I highlighted the edges of the triangles next with Offwhite. I thought the brass could use a warmer tone, so I applied a layer of Ratling flesh shade. I also thought the steel could be a little darker, so I added an extra layer of armor wash on top of it. I painted over the rivets with diluted black paint. Next, I highlighted the steel in a couple different ways with Iron Hand steel. On large textured areas like the scales, I dry brushed the highlight. For the blades and finer details, I used a sharp brush to add a few scratches and edge highlights. You could dry brush these areas instead if you'd like to save time. I also picked out the rivets, leaving a narrow black outline. Finally, I added a few scratches on the brass areas with a sharp brush and Canoptek alloy. I'd like to give a big shout out to our supporters here on YouTube and Patreon. Thank you so much for your support. It really is a huge help. If you want to be like these amazing people and help support what I'm doing here, just click the join button down below or follow the Patreon link in the video description. Thank you. One thing I love about this hobby is it's so easy to revisit old projects again, almost like no time has passed. A couple years may have gone by, but the army is still the same as the day I left it, and now there are a few more orcs to join the ranks. Do you have any abandoned projects lurking in the shadows, or maybe in a dusty box under your hobby desk? Share them down in the comments below, and let's challenge each other to revisit those old projects with some new ideas. Well, that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and until next time, happy painting.